Wind in the Willows, Chapter 3, Part 2. It was already getting towards dusk when he reached the first fringe of the trees and plunged without hesitation into the wood, looking anxiously on either side for any sign of his friends. Here and there wicked little faces popped out of holes, but vanished immediately at sight of the vulvarous animal, his pistols and his great ugly cudgels in his grasp. And the whistling and the pattering, which he had heard quite plainly on his first entry, died away and ceased, and all was very still. He made his way manfully through the length of the wood to its furthest edge. Then, forsaking all paths, he set himself to traverse it, laboriously working over the whole ground, and all the time calling out cheerfully, "Molly, Molly, Molly, where are you? It's me, it's old Rat!" He patiently hunted through the wood for an hour or more, when at last to his joy he heard a little answering cry. Guiding himself by the sound, he made his way through the gathering darkness to the foot of an old beech tree with a hole in it, and from out of the hole came a feeble voice saying, "Ratty, is that really you?" The rat crept into the hollow, and there he found the mole, exhausted and still trembling. "Oh, Rat," he cried, "I've been so frightened. You can't think." "Oh, I quite understand," said the rat soothingly. "You shouldn't really have gone and done it, Mole. I did my best to keep it from you. We river bankers, we hardly ever come by here by ourselves. If we have to come, we come in couples, at least. Then we're generally all right. Besides, there are 100 things one has to know, which we understand all about and you don't as yet. I mean passwords, and signs and sayings which have the power and effect, and plants you carry in your pocket, and verses you repeat, and dodges and tricks you practice. All simple enough when you know them, but they've got to be known if you're small, or you'll find yourself in trouble. Of course, if you were badger or otter, it would be quite another matter." "Surely the brave Mr. Toad wouldn't mind coming here by himself, would he?" inquired the mole. "Old Toad?" said the rat, laughing heartily. He wouldn't show his face here alone, not for the whole hatful of golden guineas, Toad wouldn't." The mole was greatly cheered by the sound of Rat's careless laughter. As well as the sight of his stick and his gleaming pistols, he stopped shivering and began to feel bolder and more himself again. "Now then," said the rat presently, "we really must pull ourselves together and make a start for home while there's still a little light left. It will never do to spend the night here, you understand. Too cold, for one thing." "Dear Ratty," said the poor mole, "I'm dreadfully sorry, but I simply dead beat, and it's a solid fact. You must let me rest here a little while longer and get my strength back if I'm to get home at all." "Oh, all right," said the good-natured rat. "Rest away. It's pretty nearly pitch dark now anyhow, and there ought to be a bit of moon later." So the mole got well into the dry leaves and stretched himself out, and presently dropped off into a sleep, though of a broken and troubled sort, while the rat covered himself up too, as best he might, for warmth, and lay patiently waiting, with a pistol in his paw. When at last the mole woke up, much refreshed, and his usual spirits, the rat said, "Now then, I'll just take a look outside and see if everything's quite, and then we really must be off." He went to the entrance of the retreat and put his head out. Then the mole heard him saying quietly to himself, "Hello? Hello? Here is a go." "What's up, Ratty?" asked the mole. "Snow is up," replied Rat briefly, "or rather down. It's snowing hard." The mole came and crouched beside him, and looking out saw the wood had been so dreadful to him in quite a changed aspect. Holes, hollows, pools, pitfalls, and other black menaces to a wayfarer were vanishing fast, and a gleaming carpet of fairy was springing up everywhere that looked too delicate to be trodden upon by rough feet. A fine powder filled the air and caressed the cheek with a tinge in its touch, and the black boles of the trees showed up in its light and seemed to come from below. "Well, well, it can't be helped," said the rat, after pondering. "We must make a start and take our chance, I suppose. The worst of it is, I don't exactly know where we are. And now the snow makes everything look so different." It did indeed. The mole would not have known that it was the same wood. However, they set out bravely and took the line that seemed the most promising, holding on to one another and pretending with invincible cheerfulness that they recognised an old friend in every fresh tree, grimly and silently greeted them, or saw openings, gaps or paths with a familiar turn in them, in the monotony of white space and the black tree trunks that refused to vary. An hour or two later they had lost all count of time. They pulled up, dispirited, weary and hopelessly, at sea, and had sat down at a fallen tree trunk to recover their breath and consider what to be done. They were aching and fatigued and bruised with tumbles. They had fallen into several holes and got wet through. The snow was getting so deep they could hardly drag their little legs through it, and the trees were thicker and more like each other than ever. There seemed to be no end to this wood, and no beginning, and no difference in it, and worst of all, no way out. "We can sit here very long," said Rat. "We shall have to make another push for it, and do something or other. The cold is too awful for anything, and the snow will soon be too deep for us to wade through." He peered about him and considered. "Look here," he went on. "This is what occurs to me. There's a sort of dell down here in front of us, where the ground seems a hilly and humpy and hummocky. We'll make our way down into that, and try to find some sort of shelter, or cave, or hole, or dry flat floor to it, out of the snow and the wind, and there we'll have a good rest before we try again, for we both of us are pretty dead beat. Besides, the snow may leave off, or something may turn up." So once more they got on their feet and struggled down into the dell, where they hunted about for a cave or some corner that was dry and protection from the keen wind and the whirling snow. They were investigating one of the hummocky bits that Rap had spoken of, when suddenly the mole tripped and fell forward on his face with a squeal. "Oh, my leg!" he cried. "Oh, my poor shin!" And he sat down up on the snow and nursed his leg in both his front paws. "Poor old mole," said the rat kindly. "You don't seem to be having much luck today, do you? Let's have a look at that leg. Yes," he went on, going down on his knees to look. "You've cut your shin, sure enough. Wait till I get my handkerchief and I'll tie it up for you." "I must have tripped over a hidden branch or a stump," said Mole miserably. "Oh my, oh my!" "It's a very clean cut," said Rat, exclaiming at it attentively. "That was never done by a branch or a stump. Looks as if it was made by a sharp edge of something metal. Funny." He pondered a while and examined the humps and slopes around them. "Well, never mind what done it," said the Mole, forgetting his grammar in his pain. "Hurts the same, whatever done it." But the rat, after carefully tying up the leg with a handkerchief, had left him and was busy scraping in the snow. He scratched and shovelled and explored, all four legs working busily, while the Mole waited impatiently, remarking on intervals, "Oh, come on, Rat." Suddenly the rat cried, "Hooray!" and then, "Hooray! Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!" and fell to execute a feeble jig in the snow. "What have you found, Ratty?" asked the Mole, still nursing his leg. "Come and see," said the delighted rat, as he jigged on. The Mole hobbled up to the spot and had a good look. "Well," he said at last, slowly, "I see it right enough. Seen the same sort of thing before, lots of times. Familiar object, I call it. A door scraper." "Well, what of it? My dance jigs around a door scraper." "But don't you see what it means? You dull-witted animal," cried the rat impatiently. "Of course I see what it means," replied the Mole. "It simply means that some very careless and forgetful person has left his door scraper lying about in the middle of the wild wood, just where it's sure to trip everybody up. Very thoughtless of him, I call it. When I get home I shall go and complain about it to somebody or other. I see if I don't." Oh dear, cried Rat in despair at his obtuseness. "Here, stop arguing and come and scrape." And he set to work again and made the snow fly in all directions round him. After some further toil, his efforts were rewarded, and a very shabby doormat lay exposed to view. "There! What did I tell you?" exclaimed the rat in triumph. "Absolutely nothing whatever," replied the Mole, with perfect truthfulness. "Well now," he went on, You seem to have found another piece of domestic litter, done for and thrown away, and I suppose you're perfectly happy. Better go ahead and dance your jig around that if you've got to, and get over it, and then perhaps we can go on and not waste any more time over rubbish heaps. Can we eat a doormat, or sleep under a doormat, or sit on a doormat, or sledge home on the snow, you exasperating rodent? Do you mean to say, cried the excited rat, that this doormat doesn't tell you anything? Really, Rat, said the mole quite pettishly, I think we've had enough of this folly. Who ever heard of a doormat telling anyone anything? They simply don't do it. They're not the sort at all. Doormats know their place. Now look here, you thick-headed beast, replied the rat, really angrily. This must stop. Not another word, but scrape, and scratch, and dig, and hunt around, especially on the sides of the hammocks. If you want to sleep in a dry, warm tonight, this is our last chance. The rat attacked a snowbank beside them with a door, probing with his cudgels everywhere, and then digging with fury. And the mole scraped busily too, more to oblige the rat than any other reason, for in his opinion that his friend was getting light-headed. For some 10 minutes hard work, and the point of the rat's cudgel struck something that sounded hollow. He worked till he could get a paw through and feel. Then he called Mole to come over and help him. Hard it went with two animals, till at last the result of their labours stood full in view of the astonished and hitherto Mole. In the side of what seemed to be a snowbank stood a solid-looking little door, painted a dark green. An iron bell pull hung from the side, and below it, on small brass plate, neatly engraved in square capital letters, they could be read in the aid of the moonlight, Mr. Badger. The mole fell backwards in the snow from sheer surprise and delight. Rat! He cried in penitence. You're a wonder, a real wonder, that's what you are. I see it all now. You argued it out step by step and in that wise head of yours from the very moment that I fell and cut my shin, and you looked at the cut and at once your majestic mind said to itself, door scraper, and then you turned to it and found the very door scraper that done it. Did you stop there? No. Some people would have been quite satisfied, but not you. Your intellect went on working. Let me only just find a doormat, says to yourself, and my theory is proved. And of course you found your doormat. You're so clever. I believe you could find anything you liked. Now says that door exists, as plain as if I saw it. There's nothing else remains to be done but to find it. Well, I've read about that sort of thing in books, but I've never come across it before in real life. You ought to go where you'll properly be appreciated. You're simply wasted here among us fellows. If only I had your head, Ratty. But as you haven't, interrupted the rat rather unkindly, I suppose you're going to sit on the snow all night and talk. Get up at once and hang on to that bell and pull you see there. And ring hard, as hard as you can, while I hammer. While the rat attacked the door with his stick, the mole sprang up and the bell pull, clutched it and swung it there, both feet well off the ground, and from quite a long way off they could faintly hear the deep-toned bell respond.